Welcome to today's webinar, announcing Amazon EC2 Systems Manager. Our presenter today is Adnan. Adnan is a principal product manager for Amazon EC2, and he is responsible for building services that simplify day-to-day management of hybrid enterprise systems. Today with us, we also have Taylor, Amjad, and Phil serving as our webinar moderators who will engage with you and answer your questions throughout the presentation while Adnan presents. Adnan, welcome. The floor is now yours.
Thanks. Hi everyone. First of all, thanks for taking time out to attend this webinar. Hopefully this will be valuable and you would be able to understand what the systems manager is and how you can put it to use in your enterprise environments. Our introduction is already done. I'm Adnan Ijaz. I'm a product manager on Amazon EC2 team. Along with me, there's Taylor Anderson. He's also product manager on Amazon EC2, and both of us are responsible for systems manager product. Amjad Hussain is a senior manager of software development on systems manager team. So hopefully we'll be able to handle all your questions, requests that as they come up. All right. So what can you expect from this session? It doesn't seem like most of you have attended our reInvent or listened to our reInvent sessions, which are also available on YouTube. If you have, you will find that there's a lot of overlap in what I'm going to talk about. And really what we're going to do in this session is to go through Systems Manager, present its capabilities, and hopefully along the way you would learn that how you can put it to use in your environments to manage cloud and hybrid IT environments at scale. And then we'll do a walkthrough demo. This presentation is going to be most demo heavy because I'm going to talk less and show you more stuff. Now that we're in production, everything is live. But feel free to, as we go through the presentation, I'm going to throw a lot of content at you. If there is any clarifying question, please go ahead and fire the question right away, and Taylor and Amjad would be able to answer it for you. And if it needs broadcast, I'll turn around and do it towards the end of the webinar as well. All right, so I'm sure most of you guys have already heard that cloud is the new normal. Enterprises of all sizes are moving to the cloud to take advantage of agility, lower costs, and global reach. As enterprises start moving to the cloud, typically it's a journey for them, whether the intent is to be all in on the cloud or they want to start with hybrid and see how it goes. What we have seen in talking to customers, most of these customers, they bring their existing traditional tool set to manage these cloud and hybrid environments. And what we have learned in talking to them is it's complex and it's costly. And the reason for that is the traditional IT tool set is not designed and built for cloud scale. Historically, in a typical enterprise, you would go through 6 to 8 weeks of procurement cycle. You would know when the new servers are coming. You can plan ahead, and you can also plan your management capabilities like that. But with cloud, and especially the elasticity of the cloud, you can come in and spin up as many resources as you want on demand. And how do you make sure that your management approach scales to the elasticity of the cloud, and you can manage all these resources that you create or tear down dynamically? The second one is how do you make sure that you have broader enterprise-wide visibility across your entire fleet, whether it's running resource workloads are running on premises or they are in the cloud. You want to have that single lens through which you can build that visibility on what's running in your enterprise. How do you manage that? And then thirdly, for every single management operation, you probably have a different tool. You might be using one product for patching, one using a product for managing secrets, and so on and so forth. And what we have learned that deploying and maintaining multiple products is a significant operational overhead. So you have to deploy them, you have to manage them, you have to patch them, and then many of them have agents running. So now you have a increased security surface or threat surface because there are so many agents that are running in your fleet. And last but not least is the licensing cost and complexity. We have heard repeatedly that many of you struggle in really understanding how the licensing works in the cloud environment for some of these tools. And if you are able to figure that out, then you will also know that it's really expensive. It's costly. So how do you go about managing, how do you take advantage of the elasticity and agility of the cloud without really compromising on some of the benefits that it offers? So we took this feedback, and the result is Amazon EC2 Systems Manager. And the idea here is that to provide you guys a set of capabilities that enable automated configuration and ongoing management of systems at large scale. Those systems could be running Windows or Linux workloads, running in Amazon EC2 or on your premises. So one tool to rule them all. So they could be running anywhere. The workloads could be running anywhere, could be running any platform. So that's the idea of EC2 Systems Manager. And EC2 Systems Manager is yet another addition to a growing list of AWS IT management tools. Many of you might have used CloudFormation, Amazon CloudWatch, AWS Config. So with EC2 Systems Manager, the idea is that this new service that we offer, it works across with all other services to provide you a comprehensive end-to-end enterprise workload management. So you can come in, provision infrastructure, configure it, monitor it, and be able to audit, have compliance in place, and then optimize resources. Before we get into the capabilities, I want to spend a minute on talking about why should you care, all right? Well, you might already be asking, okay, well, how is it different from, half a dozen or a dozen other tools that you're already using? The idea is that, as I mentioned, this one tool to rule them all. The first one is hybrid. So you no longer have to manage two different set of tooling, one for the cloud environment, one for your on-premises. This one management service that is built on the modern cloud principles, but extends to your on-premises. So you can manage your existing workloads equally effectively. Secondly, cross-platform. Why manage two sets of different tooling for Windows versus Linux? The idea is that you're able to manage all your workloads through one service. So everything that I'm going to talk about in today's webinar is every feature is hybrid and cross-platform, except for one exception, which is the patch manager. And when we get to that, I'll talk about how is it different for Windows versus Linux. But everything that I talk about, it's hybrid and cross-platform. And scalable, you might have 10 instances, you might have 10,000 instances. Our approach, the way we build Systems Manager, it shouldn't really matter. You are able to equally effectively scale to your infrastructure. Your management approach scales to that seamlessly. Security, it's front and center for everything we do at Amazon and AWS specifically. So that the idea here is that to be able to manage your environments, and you shouldn't be sacrificing best security practices. The management approach should enable you to adopt best security practices and still be able to effectively manage your enterprise workloads. Easy to write automation, no longer have to go and hire for specialized skill set or learn new languages. As we'll talk shortly, that how you can easily write automation Systems Manager and scale it to hundreds of thousands of instances. And reduced TCO, I'll get to the pricing part towards the end. It's already public knowledge that Amazon EC2 Systems Manager is free of cost. You only pay for resources that you manage. And then moreover, you're no longer managing half a dozen other applications that you would typically would. So you avoid that operational overhead, reducing the overall TCO for your enterprise management. Okay, so a quick overview of System Manager capabilities. First up, the capabilities that enable you to deploy, configure, and administer your workloads or your instances. Here we'll talk about the run command and state manager just in a bit on how you can actually easily do that without RDPing or SSHing into your instances. Then we'll talk about how do you track and update resources in your enterprise. How do you know that how many SQL copies are running in your enterprise? How do you do the license auditing? How do you patch them if there is a zero-day vulnerability, or in general, how do you patch your fleet? And then we'll talk about automation service. How do you build and maintain Amazon machine images, or run, for that matter, any run command or Lambda function. We'll get into the details of that. And in the middle, there's a set of shared capabilities, maintenance windows and parameter store. How do you perform your management tasks at a defined time such that it's not disruptive to your existing workloads? You minimize the chances of bringing down a workload or an application just because you're performing some maintenance task. And parameter store, we'll talk about it. It enables you to store your configuration assets, parameters in a way that is secure. Your connection strings, your license keys, your passwords that you can then refer in your automation without really sacrificing the security. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to spend a minute or two on each service. And there's a chance that you might get confused because I'm just going to throw so much content at you for next 7 slides. You can feel free to ask questions. Taylor and Amjad would answer the question. Plus, once we're done talking, I'm going to switch to demo mode and we'll talk about each service. I'll show it to you in the console and how it works. And hopefully some of these things would, you'll start connecting the dots and it'll start making sense. So I just want to give you a warning before starting the set of the onslaught of next 7 slides that we're going to talk about these capabilities. So let's start with run command. Really the question is, how do you perform common administrative tasks remotely at scale? Today, if you have a small number of instances, you typically do RDP or SSH into your instances, do maintenance administrative tasks, or might be running your own scripts. But how do you really do it at scale? You want to install that application. You want to configure that firewall. And the idea is that the run command enables you to do it seamlessly at scale. Other examples are running shell and PowerShell scripts. You have a PowerShell script that you want to install, run across thousands of instances. And how do you do that without RDPing or SSHing into the instances? The way to do it, the run command really simplifies that, as I mentioned. The way it does that, it enables you to write your task in a simple JSON-based document. It's a system in EC2 Systems Manager, there's a concept of documents, which is a simple JSON document. So you come in, you define your task in that simple language, if you will, and you can start by leveraging the documents that we built, that we provide, the EC2 Systems Manager team provide, and those include, for instance, running shell scripts, running PowerShell scripts, or you can leverage the one that the broader community is building. Or, if none of that works, you can create your own through simple JSON format. And the idea is that you're able to delegate access, perform audit, and receive notification on all these actions that you perform. So you want to say, I have a task. I don't want anybody to have RDP or SSH access to all these instances, but a member of my team needs to restart my web servers every now and then. So what you can do, you can create a new document, give the permission of that document to that particular individual or a team, and that's the only task that they can do. And then you can turn around and you can audit it and say, okay, when was this task run? When were the servers reboot? And then you can also have notification support that if something goes wrong or you've started an operation and it completes, you get a notification that it has completed. And it significantly improves your security posture by eliminating the need to SSH or RDP into your instances. You can define those tasks, give access to other members of your team or other departmental resources, and they can do this without getting on the box. So next up is State Manager. The idea here is that how do you define and maintain a consistent configuration of your operating system and the applications running on it? Maybe you need to configure that firewall port. Maybe you need to configure the anti-malware definitions, or just install an anti-malware, or just need to make sure that at all times anti-malware software is running in your fleet. So the way you do it with Systems Manager, you do it through State Manager. You come in, you define your policy, again through simple JSON-based documents, and you'd say, I want to configure this firewall in this particular way. And while the run command is more like you go in and perform the operation once, the State Manager, what it does, it applies the policy and then it maintains it. So if you say that a RDP port on my instance should always be closed, then it's a policy. And what State Manager does, it will go in and close that RDP port. But it also makes sure that if somebody opens it, it reapplies that configuration policy and closes down. The idea is that you can define the desired the policy or the configuration policy for your fleet or instances, and State Manager takes care of it. And you can control how and when a configuration is applied and maintained. There are policies that you want applied, more frequently, and then there are policies, say, every once in a day, every once in a week, go do this. So you have the control on how you apply these policies. And really what it does, it helps enforce enterprise-wide compliance of configuration policies. Now you can define your policies in one place and make sure and have the assurance that they would get applied on all your instances across AWS in your or on your premises. Next up, automation service. And the idea here is that you are able to automate a common administrative task using simplified workflow-driven approach. And the first use case that the service is optimized for is really building and maintaining Amazon machine images. We have heard from customers that today it's a pain. Either you have figured out your own solution on how you produce your weekly or monthly armies. Many of you call it golden images or blessed images or hardened images, whatever that language is. That in reality you're going through this process very frequently based on your frequency. And with automation service, what you can do, you can come in and define a workflow. Say, start with a army that's existing army, perform a series of steps. It could be installing OS patching, updating drivers, or installing your own software, or installing your own applications, and produce a new army. So that at the end of the process, you get this new hardened army that is for your enterprise. And then any new instances you provision, you can use that army. And much like other two capabilities we talk about, is also based on JSON documents. And on the next slide, I'll give you some idea of what the document is, because I've brought it up multiple times now. So just to clarify that, and once we jump to the demo mode, I'll be able to show it in a more hands-on fashion. Today, in your workflows, in your automation service workflow, you can call any run command that we just talked about, or any Lambda function, and those could do additional things. In addition to some of the steps that we provide out of the box. And the idea is that it eliminates the overhead in managing golden enterprise images. You can create an automation workflow, and then you no longer have to do it manually. As a matter of fact, I think in last 2 weeks for this particular one, for building and producing armies, we already starting to get great feedback from our customers, and things like, I've heard comments like it works like a charm. It really improves has really improved how they, some of the customers have produced armies in the past, and now the process is simplified for them. All right, so a bit about documents, and like I said, we will talk about these in more detail when I get to the demo. But really three types of documents. As when we go to System Manager, you will see the document option. There's command, there's policy, and automation. Command is mostly run command. You can come in, define your task, and and run that through a run command. And policy is, like I mentioned, State Manager policy. You have a firewall policy or any other policy. You don't want a particular version of operating of an application installed. You can define that policy by creating a policy-based document. And the third one is automation. As name suggests, this is your workflow we just talked about for automation service. All right, so moving on, I'm hoping that you guys are, it's making sense. I'm looking at moderators, and because I can see the Q&A, I'm hoping that it's making sense for everybody, and we'll just continue talking. Or otherwise, if there's any question that I need to pause and answer, I can do that. We good, Taylor? All right, cool. All right, so we'll keep going, and feel free to ask us as many questions as you can. Parameter store, centralized management of IT assets such as passwords and connection strings. How do you do that? Today, you might be using your own solution. You might be hard coding some of your critical configuration assets in your scripts, and when the time is to change those, the values of those assets, either your application breaks, your script breaks, and plus it's a security risk, right? So with parameter store, what you can do, you can store your configuration, parameters, or information in a secure place, and which is encrypted. And you can reference those parameters through run command, through state manager, automation service, or your own application for that matter. We expose APIs that you can store information and call in your own scripts. And granular access control limits unwanted data access so that it's not like you put it in a parameter store, everybody has access to it. Through IAM integration, you can limit the access control on who has access to which parameter. And again, we'll do a demo and hopefully it'll make sense. And you can encrypt your sensitive information using your own keys, KMS keys, or just go with the keys that are default. And it eliminates the ongoing maintenance challenge of critical enterprise assets. You want to change that password, or you want to rotate that license key that you have put in for your SQL server. So now you can do it through one place without really having to change anything, and it simplifies the workflow of doing that. All right, maintenance window. As I mentioned earlier, this service enables you to schedule your disruptive tasks in a way that minimizes the downtime. So you might have that patch Tuesday, or you patch your servers at a particular time. How do you do that in a way that your application don't go down? You might be doing it through Excel sheets today. You have the schedule, putting in your Excel sheet, okay, these are the servers that I'm going to patch at this time, and these are the servers that I can't patch, or any other operation for that matter. So the idea is that maintenance window eliminates that hassle for you. You can come in, create a window of time, essentially a recurring window of time, where it's acceptable to perform disruptive operations. And it provides built-in integration with, we'll just talk about it, patch manager just in a bit. And the idea is you come in, create a maintenance window, you register your targets, and your target could be your on-premises instances or your EC2 instance. And then you schedule, once you register your targets, you register your tasks, and your task could be go patch these servers, or go install this software, or uninstall this local. Performance could be anything, and do it at a time when nobody is, the traffic is, the load is low. And it, as I've been saying, it really simplifies how you do the disruptive operations. It improves availability and reliability of your workloads, because now and then it eliminates the hassle of managing all these schedules in your Excel sheet today if you're doing it that way. Next up, inventory service. And as the name suggests, it's a scalable way of collecting, querying, and auditing detailed on your instances or in your enterprise fleet across EC2 and on-premises. This could include OS settings, network configuration, office, across enterprise on what's installed. Scenarios such as license auditing and tracking and identifying zero-day vulnerabilities. How do you do that? You go to this one place and say, give me all the instances or all the systems that are missing this particular patch, or that are missing this particular setting, or give me all the instances that are running a particular version of SQL Server or any other application or Python. And the idea, similar to any other thing we've been talking about, you define your inventory type, or you pick from our pre-defined inventory types, and you define a document, which is a JSON-based document, to collect this information. You can write your own. We'll get to the demo mode and we'll talk about the predefined inventory types and your own custom one, how you can define one. But there is no limit. You can extend the schema to include your own information. This could be your particular, rack information, any other thing that you want to surface in that central store. And while inventory provides you a point-in-time snapshot of what's running in your enterprise, we have also integrated with the AWS config service. So you can actually go back and look at how the software information has changed over time. You can go back and look at what time, how many, if for instance, if you get audited for license usage, you can go back and take a look at what was the peak SQL usage. Or if there's any vulnerability, you can go back and take a look. When was the software installed, how it was installed, and have all that information. So it's with the integration with AWS config, you have this historic view. Before we patch manager. And remember at the beginning I told you that everything I'm going to talk about is hybrid and cross-platform with one exception, and that exception is patch manager. In release that we launched at reInvent, and with patch manager now is coming soon. We patch manager will only support Windows operating system patching, and the idea here is that you can come in and create patch policies. We call them patch baselines. And that policy could be that any critical patch that gets released, I want to install it on day one. I don't want to wait for a number of days because it's critical, 0-day vulnerability, for instance. So go install it right away. But for any non-critical patches, wait for a number of days before you start rolling it out to my production environment. Maybe I want to test it. Maybe I want to see if the patch is actually a good patch and it would bring down my entire fleet. So you can define those policies as patch baselines. And when the patch manager would actually take into account those policies while rolling out the patches. And the workflow here is you come in, you define your policies, you define which instances, again, across EC2 or your on-premises need patching. And you can schedule those instances in a maintenance window with a patch task. So the workflow is all my finance servers or HR servers or my web servers, here is the policy, and they should all be patched Tuesday midnight. And these are all the servers, and here is the patch task. And then once the patching is complete, you can come back and take a look at, okay, did anything fail, and what failed, and how can I address that. And an important thing to note here is that you have control at all times on how the patching is rolled out. You might be thinking that what if something goes south and all of a sudden my entire fleet is down, and this is happening midnight. You can actually define how many instances or how many systems to be patched at a time and when to stop if based on a certain error threshold. So you could say that here are my 100 instances, go patch them, but patch them 5 at a time, and if 2 of them fail, stop. And the idea is that if something goes wrong, you have the opportunity to come in and take a look and say, oh, I understand what's going on. Let me take a look and address that. So with maintenance window and patch baseline and then the run command integration, you have that capability. And it's patch is probably the obvious or the most the favorite topic that I've seen so far in talking to customers. So you guys probably know that it's very manual. You have to do it very manually today. So the idea with patch manager is it eliminates manual intervention and reduces time to deploy for some of the critical updates or 0-day vulnerabilities. All right, I already talked about it. No charge. You only pay for AWS resources you manage, or if you integrate Systems Manager and use in conjunction with other AWS services, their pricing applies separately. But Systems Manager itself is free of cost. And it's already available in multiple regions. The chances are you're already covered if you're in one of those regions, and we continue to roll out any missing regions that we have at this point. And Patch Manager, everything is already available. We made it available at reInvent. You can go play with that as I do the demo. Hopefully that you'll learn how you can take advantage of these capabilities. Patch Manager is coming soon, actually very soon. We were working on it, and hopefully you'll get to try it out soon as well. Okay, so I'll pause for a couple of minutes, see if you guys have any questions for us, Taylor and Amjad, and then I'll jump over to the demo. let me switch over to my okay. All right. Is this just X that out. Okay. All right. So this is EC2 Management Console. If you haven't seen this yet, I'm pretty sure if you have used AWS, you know where this console is, how to get to this. But this is where you start. You come to EC2 Management Console, and all the systems manager capabilities are available through the left navigation. So if you scroll all the way down, you see a set of capabilities on core services and shared resources. See run command, state manager, automation service, and things like manage instance. We'll just talk about it. Maintenance window and parameter stores. So that's where you start with EC2 Management Console, go to left navigation, and capabilities are there. Let's start with the manage instance. So anything that is under management by systems manager will show up in this view. This includes any of your on-premises instances if you have activated them through systems manager, and we'll talk about activation just in a bit, and any EC2 console. Essentially anything that is being managed by systems manager is available in this one view. And you might be asking, how do I bring my own premises systems here? How do they show up? Everything, all the process for managing on-premises versus EC2 instances is exactly the same, except for one step, which is for on-premises systems, you have to create an activation. And the activation is you install an SSM agent, which is really required for using systems manager capabilities. It's one agent for all the capabilities, and it's already available as an open source. And you create an activation code. You go through this create activation process. I'm not going to go through this in the interest of time. You say how many instances I want to enable at this time, and then specify other setting, how I'm going to name my new instances that I'm registering. And once you go through this process, it spits out activation code, which you would need once you're installing the agent on your on-premises systems or any system running anywhere. Essentially, I keep talking about on-premises, but as long as we can see an instance or a system, we will manage it for you. So once you're installing that, you have to go through this one additional step to provide activation key, and you're all set. Once you do that, your instance that's being managed will show up in this view under manage instances. So that's really the activation process for on-premises and talking about the agent. Now you're in this, sort of dashboard here where you have all the instances that are under management. Let's go through this one by one. And remember, just to refresh your memory, all the capabilities that we talked about. We talked about run command, which is really ad hoc management, state manager, which is the policy-based mechanism, maintenance window, parameter stores, and then inventory, patch manager, and automations. So we'll go through these one by one. But let's just browse through this. So, this is some of the information that I've already generated based on the management, these instances that are already under management. You can come in and see a typical, which of the AWS components are installed on this particular instance. And this is information that's being generated by the inventory service that we talked about. You can go back and see, how are my policies doing? Remember, we talked about state manager. That policy, or how you apply that policy, is through association, and we'll create that just in a bit. But in one view, the idea here is that you can pick any instance, anything that's related to that, you can view it in one central place. And now let's just spend a bit of time on documents, because that's really the central building block for systems manager. Any task, any policy, any command, any execution that you specify is through a document. And as you can see, there are a set of documents that we already provide. You will see documents such as run PowerShell script, run shell script, update my SSM agent that we just talked about, or any other, install a particular service, configure CloudWatch, or you can create your own. Here are some of the documents that I have already created, and I will use them throughout the course of this demo. You can use the JSON editor of your own choice, or you can just type that here in the browser and name the document, specify what type it is. It's run command or state manager, or it's going to be a workflow for the automation service, and you're all set. I will show you one particular one. Let's just look at these two. Right, so here's a document that I have that installs a few applications that I want to install on my instances. I'll just zoom that a bit so that you guys can see it clearly. So as you can see, I'm defining main steps. Again, I'm not gonna, in the interest of time, I won't be able to go very deep on specifics of documents and how they are done. Technical documentation on EC2 Systems Manager would go in detail on some of these things. I'll just quickly glance over the things that are in JSON so that it makes sense to you what we're talking about, and hopefully the documentation would enable you to go deep into this stuff and perform next steps. So what this document is really doing, saying that go install this particular MSI, install a zip application that I want to install, 7-zip in this particular case, and I also want to install Python, and this is my AWS applications. Action is installed, and here is the URL, or here's the location of the MSI that you want to install. Or I can have a PowerShell script which says I'm now going to install Chrome. So you say you have an action that you want to install Chrome on all of your instances. So you can come in and express that task here in a document, and that could be a run command based on PowerShell. It says, here's the URL, go to this URL, download the chocolatey, and then install Chrome for me. So that's really the document. So similarly, you can define an automation workflow, which is really the process of how do you bake new armies. And we'll get to it when I get to the automation demo, but I just wanted to give you a quick feel of now in this particular document, you have steps. How do you start instances, you bake the missing updates, you stop instances, and we'll get back to this particular document when we get to the automation service demo. So that's really high-level overview. Now let's start talking about each service specifically, and there's going to be some overlap as I demonstrate some of these capabilities. Like for instance, maintenance window can be leveraged in multiple places. So hopefully that overlap would also help with some of the understanding. So let's start with run command. Remember I talked about run command is a way for you to perform any remote administrative tasks at scale. And the way you do it, we just talked about the documents. So for this particular demo, let's pick a very toy problem. Say I want to execute a run command, and it's a shell script that I want to do, and I want to run on a couple of instances. So it filters down the instances for me, the Linux-based instance, because it's a Linux document, and I specify my command, and could be webinar. Okay, so we just printing that information, and there you go. So you can think of this, I just ran here 2 instances, but these instances could be as many as you have, right? That are under systems manager management. And just looking at I'm just going to filter, because I've been using this account to manage all my instances. I'm just going to focus on the instances that I'm going to filter the results. And these are the results from the run command that we just did. We targeted 2 instances, and let's look at the output. So webinar. So in a very simple way, if you have, and that was really a shell document that we already produced. You can put in any shell script in there, just quick information that you want to gather. You can produce your own document that could be just, remember I showed you chocolatey, the experience would exactly be the same. You will come in, say, show me on the documents by me, and I want to say install my applications. And since it will take longer, that's why I decided to pick a smaller example, but nothing prevents me from running that document just like the way I did it. There are no parameters, and I'll just run it, and it will go install all the applications. You will still get the output just like you're seeing here. So that's run command, how you do perform ad hoc administration. Now let's talk about state manager just a bit. In state manager, the idea here is that you can define the policy, and that policy is applied by state manager if there's a drift. You'll apply the policy initially, but keep your instances in a state that you define in your policy. So here are the associations that I ran. I ran a PowerShell script, and let's pick inventory example. I think that's a better one. So what I'm doing is I'm saying that let's just talk about it, and then I'll go to the create association experience. But we're saying that what this association is saying, that go collect AWS software inventory, which is really the inventory document that we have provided to collect software inventory information, just like all other documents that you just saw. And I'm saying that go create all the instances that have a tag environment and the tag value is demo. You go collect the inventory for me and collect it at a specific time and schedule. And what really it does, state manager picks up this association, and based on the schedule that you specify, it will collect that information. Or you can come in and say, I'm going to pick a different document, and that document is that I just want to make sure that at all times my RDB port on my Windows instances are closed. So I have written a document which uses a PowerShell script. Go test it on the instance, and the instance has a RDB port open. It fails, and state manager shows me that, yep, this port is open, so you need to go address that. So you pick a document, you specify instances. You can specify them through tag, or you can specify by manually picking the instances, and say, I'm just going to pick the first two instances. I'm going to say, go on these two instances, apply this policy, and do it every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, go back and check if this information is not applied or this policy is not applied. Let me know and reapply it. And just like that. So you have policy now created, and it's in pending state. And when it executes, we'll get to it in a bit. You will see that we go back to manage instance view, and we see associations. And remember, we just selected this particular instance with that association that I just created to test the RDB port. You see it started to show up here. My doc, version 1, last applied on, it's in pending state, and very soon it'll go apply. And in this particular case, it will fail because the RDB port is open, and it'll come back to me and say, your script returned an error, and really what I was doing in script in the document is that throw an error if the port is open. So that's really the state manager. Hopefully it gives you some sense of how you define policies and based task. It could be anything. Firewall is a good example, but it could be installing anti-malware software, making sure it's always installed, or the definitions are up to date. So with that, I'm going to jump into the talk about the software inventory, and then we'll round that up towards the end by talking how inventory information is important for scenarios such as detecting zero-day vulnerabilities, and how you can actually, from one view, figure out what's missing and how do you patch that. So we're back in the manage instance view, and remember I told you at the beginning that this is really the central dashboard, if you will, for systems managers. This is one place where you can get started. So say I want to get started with setting up the inventory information. You go to manage instance, click the setup inventory, And here's the document that we have already created for you. You don't have to create it. It goes out and collects that information from the instances that are under management. You can manually select instances, or you can specify a tag. You can say pick all the instances that has this particular tag. And similar to State Manager, another thing to call out here is that inventory is essentially the way software inventory service works. It's built on top of State Manager. So think of collecting inventory as yet another policy that you want to make sure that every 30 minutes, every hour, every day, or whatever that appropriate frequency is, you're collecting the information from your instances so that you're able to have most up-to-date information based on whatever the particular scenario there is. So similar to State Manager Association, since it's an association underneath, you pick a schedule and say, I want to collect software inventory every 30 minutes, or based on the schedule that's available here. And then you can pick the type of information that you want to collect when you're collecting software inventory. You can collect application information, AWS information on AWS instances. If you have Windows instances, you can collect information on Windows instances. And the last here one, I'm not going to go through the process of, in this short time, talk about how do you create custom inventory. It's available in the documentation. But the idea is that if you have your own information to push to the store, you can do that. And in this setting, you would say enable that or disable that. And if it's enabled, the way you produce that information, that's viewable in software inventory, and you can consume it just like any other things that we have provided. And you'll just go through the setup inventory process. I'm not going to click that because I've already configured for the instances that I have that. But once you do that, and you will go to the manage instance, you can pick any instance. I'll keep this selected. You would see that software inventory shows up as an association. Last it applied at this particular time, at 11 a.m. and it was a success. It successfully completed the information, and all the plugins succeeded, and it got all the information. And as soon as the firewall one succeeds, you will see the output here on how it went. So that's the software inventory information. And with software inventory, what you can do, you can also come in and do advanced queries like this. You can say, give me all the applications that are, their name begins with Microsoft, right? So give me all the instances that have a Microsoft software, and these are typically SQL. Maybe a better filter would be that we say, give me all the applications that have Microsoft SQL installed. So you come in, you type that query, and see, previously we got 3 records, but all we're looking for is now SQL instances. So get your universe is now filtered down to the information that you're looking for. So that's really filtering or queuing at an aggregate level. Or if you a particular instance, you want to say, I know this instance, I just want to know what's installed on this particular instance. So you can pick that instance and go to this control here and pick from the inventory types. It could be application, and do the same thing here, where name begins with, let's do, when names begins with, so it'll show you all the Microsoft application installed. You could do Microsoft SQL. So the idea is that you can filter down, you can filter for inventory information at your fleet level, and it'll give you the type of instances you're looking for. Or you can come to each individual instance and get all the information and whatever the particular use case scenario is. You can also think of this, I didn't do this particular KB thing, but say if you're looking for a particular hotfix, that is this hotfix available? I don't have a good one off the top of my mind, but you could come in and say, give me all the instances that have this hotfix installed, and you can say KB 123, whatever your KB is, and it'll give you all the instances that have that particular KB installed. And you can do the negative filters as well. All right, so that's that. what I'm going to do next, so in the interest of time, we have 9 minutes. I'm going to now show you parameter store, integration with parameter store, the run command integration with parameter store. We're going to talk about maintenance windows, and patch is something that's coming, so I might be able to show it through to you from my internal environment, although it's not released. So just talk a couple of minutes on how we're thinking about it. And then last, we'll round it up by building AMI automation workflow. Essentially, we'll try out the automation service, we'll create a workflow, and show you how to build AMIs. So that's really the three things. I hope it's making sense because I really wanted to cover the breadth of the features so that at least you have some sense of where to look for and how to apply each of these capabilities to your own scenario. So it was important that we covered all of them in enough detail that you have understanding of what it is and you can go figure out the next steps. So that I totally realize that we're throwing too much at you. Hopefully it's making sense so far. All right, let's talk about parameter store, which is how do you store your secrets or configuration parameters in a way that is secure, and you can refer to those through your run command. Just a minute. So parameter, you can come in. I have created a couple of parameters. The idea here is it's simple key value pair. You can come and say webinar test. You can say your description, testing, parameter service. And you have option to pick from simple key, string list, which is simple key value pair. Maybe the information that you're storing is simple information. All you want is a central place to store this. Or maybe the information that's storing is secure and you want to have as a secured string, which is encrypted. And in this case, I'm just going to go with secured string and say testing. I'm just putting some value in it. And just like that, you have a parameter. I have already created a couple of parameters, product name, which is a simple string, not a secured string. And the other one that I have is what I call a super secret. This is really a secured string, and we'll test it out just in a bit. In this particular parameter, the value, it contains the Amazon EC2 Systems Manager as the product name, and this is just a secret, some garbage stuff that I put in there. So let's just see both of them in action. Let's see just product name. And the idea here is to show you how you can put all your parameters in one place, or configuration parameters in one place, and use with other automation artifacts either within Amazon EC2 Systems Manager or inside your own application. So first I'm going to show you the integration with run command. And again, it's going to be really simple. I'm going to do a PowerShell script. And I'm going to run the script on, say, one instance. Let's just do that for the sake of this simple demo. And my parameter is nothing fancy. I'm just going to say, show me the value of this parameter. So see, I'm not hardcoding this string. I'm referring to the parameter store. And this particular parameter name is product name. And just show me what the value of this parameter is. And you can think of all sorts of interesting scenarios here. You don't have to, this is just a toy problem that I'm showing it to you, but you can think of how you can operationalize in your particular scenarios. And I did that. So with that, I have the information. It's succeeded. I went to the output, the command, and it showed me Amazon EC2 Systems Manager, which is really not the thing that I put in there. It was in the parameter store. So now let's look into the secured string parameters. And I'm going to show you how you can get information from secured string parameters using, this is PowerShell. You can use Amazon CLI. You can do it in both Linux and Windows environment for your own application. For this particular demo, I just went with PowerShell. So take a look at this. This is my region. All I'm saying is that get me all the parameters. Give me parameter list with the name, the parameter name that I just gave it. I call it super secret. Decrypt it. Show me the value. And you can view it as, hey, you go to the parameter store, get the string or this password or the license key or connection string, whatever that information is, take that, and then you can use it in your script. I'm this is just a simple example how you take this value, convert it to another secured string for PowerShell, and pass it as in your rest of your PowerShell script. So let's execute this. What it's going to show me, it's first going to show me the secured string, the value of the secured string that I just created. So I had put in super secret stuff. As you see, this is the value, and then I took that value, made it into a PowerShell credential object, and now I can use it in the rest of my script. And what I can do, just a quick thing, if I go back to my parameter store and edit parameter, so let me say, instead of say super secret stuff, say now let me say just a testing, okay? Just to show you how the passwords or things like a parameter rollout or rollback would work. So let's run this thing again. See, now it's giving me testing. So if you are using all these parameter secrets in your application scripts and you go to this one place, you change it, and you don't have to go anywhere, refresh your configuration files or change it elsewhere, all centralized. And you can use it with state manager, run command, automation service, or in your own application. So with that out of the window, let's quickly talk about maintenance window and patch manager. Like I said, patch manager is something that we're working on. It's coming soon. I won't go into too much detail of what the patch manager or cover it here, but hopefully once it's available soon, you can consult the documentation and get it to work. What I will, however, tell you what it is and how it works, so hopefully you have some sense of how things work. So let me switch to, let me see if I can switch to my internal environment. All right, so I'm taking a big risk by taking you guys to my internal test environment, so hopefully things would work. But I really wanted to help you guys understand what patch manager is, how we're thinking about it, even though it's coming soon and you'll be able to try it out once it's available. Okay, so once it's available, you would see, in addition to run command, state manager, automation service, you see patch baselines. And the idea with the patch baseline is it's your patch policy. Remember I talked about in my presentation, where you come in, you specify the name of your policy, you can say web server policy or whatever it is. You pick a product, you say for Windows Server 2016, if there is a security update and it's critical, within 1 day, apply it. Whereas if this thing is not a security update, it's some critical update with, say, important or low, wait for 7 days. So the idea is that you don't have to pick and choose. You can define that policy, and when you're doing the patching, we respect that policy while installing the patches for you or updates for you. And you can always blacklist or whitelist the specific patches. You could say, this is my policy, but here are the 2 patches I would never want to install in my environment because I know they mess up my web servers. Or you could say, this patch should always be applied regardless of the policy because it is so critical. And those are the things that you control. So you have the policy, you can specifically approve or reject specific patches. All right, so I think I'm told that we need to wrap up, so I'll probably spend a couple of minutes and go through this. All right, need to wrap up soon. Just give me, can I have 1 more minute just to show you? So the idea is that with patch baseline, you can come in and create those patch baselines, and then in maintenance window, you can create a maintenance window, specify your, register your targets, and then on your targets, you can specify a patch task. And in this particular case, I'm going to go apply patch baseline. This is really the document that we have produced. So if you click this document or pick this task and specify the parameters, what would really happen is that when the maintenance window come due, It will pick up the instances that you have registered. It will download, it will pick the policy that you have specified in the patch baseline, and it will start patching. And based on the criteria or the control that you have specified. And once the patching is complete, you can go back to the maintenance window history and look at the results. I'm jumping a bit here because unfortunately we're out of time, so I couldn't really walk you through the maintenance window in detail. But the idea is, I think it's simple enough. Once you go to the documentation, you'll be able to figure it out. But I wanted to show you the integration with patching. So you come here, you go to the history, and this was my last maintenance window run. It runs every 4 hours, and it'll show me all the tasks that were performed. It shows me all the patch baselines, the apply patch baseline. This is really the task that I just showed you, which does the patching. And what's the status? So let's look at the status for this particular patch run and what succeeded, what failed. And if I am targeting multiple instances in this particular patching run, and let's look at the output. This is really the output on this particular instance. It's telling me everything was installed already. There were 5 instances, 5 updates that were installed that were not part of the policy. Maybe someone else installed it. It's okay. There are 397 that were not applicable. But imagine if something was missing, you would get it. Or you can go to the inventory filtering that I just showed you on the manage instance. You can type in filters that give me all the instances which have a security update and missing count is greater than 0. So you can do all sorts of different interesting filtering or compliance scenarios there. And with that, I'll wrap up. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I couldn't get to the automation service and show you army building process. I just quick, it's just show you where you get started with that, and I'll let you try it out. So this is the automation service, the process of building and maintaining armies. You build a document that I showed you at the really beginning, which had the workflow. You specified your, okay, now I'm in my test environment. I don't know if it's going to work. But anyways, the idea here is that you pick the document, you specify the input parameters, and then, okay, all right. So with that, I'll wrap up. I'm being given multiple warnings now. Unfortunately, we tried to cover way too much in this. Hopefully it makes sense, and hopefully it sets you on a path where you can go in and start going through the technical documentation and start playing with it. And we're always looking forward to hearing from you on the feedback and things that worked and things that didn't work.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Adnan, for a great presentation. To the moderators for answering everyone's questions. We do apologize that we have to cut this short, but we're running a little over our time here, and we have another webinar about to start. So if you have any comments on our previous and upcoming webinars or suggestions on the topics you wish AWS will cover in future webinars, please drop us a line at awswebcast@amazon.com. Your feedback will help us to improve our webinar programming. Before you sign off, please take a quick minute to reply to the